You're listening to ProdCast, the personal productivity podcast from CRM Audio with Matthew C. Anderson and Joel Lindstrom. Thanks to Kingsway Soft. Kingsway Soft's the leading integration solution provider. It offers solutions that make data integrations affordable and painlessly easy. Kingsway Soft is a leading provider of Microsoft Dynamics integration software, including Dynamics 365, CRM, AX, Nav, GP, SL, as well as many other applications, such as Marketo, Dropbox, QuickBooks, and Salesforce. Whether you need one solution or several, Kingsway Soft works easily within the SSIS platform to make your integration process as quick and easy as possible. And we're also sponsored by Alexa CRM. WordPress powers more than 25% of all the websites on the internet and is the number one choice for blogs, websites, and portals. Dynamics 365 is the de facto standard for sales, marketing, and customer service, and industry solutions. Now they can work together with the Dynamics 365 CRM WordPress plugin built with love by the Alexa CRM team. Capture forms, engage your users and customers, all without writing any code. Control your site in WordPress while keeping your data in Dynamics 365. Thanks to Alexa CRM and Kingsway Soft for sponsoring ProdCast, the personal productivity podcast.
Good day, Joel. How are you, sir?
Good day, Mr. Anderson. I'm doing well.
I'm glad to hear it. I don't know. I mean, I certainly know we're recording this episode on a Friday, and for me, Friday is kind of toward the end of my mental week. I'm sure it is for a lot of people, but something that I'd like to chat with you about is kind of this dilemma I find myself, or this challenge I find myself posed with around the beginning and end of my week. As I've mentioned, I'm a big believer in weekly planning, that time to sit down, look forward, look back at what's scheduled, what's important for the week, what didn't I get done last week that I need to make sure happens this week. And I find that I've been doing about the same thing on that for at least 2 years, based on how many entries I have in the Evernote where I track a lot of that stuff. And I just feel like some of my weekly planning might be stale. There have to be these things that I'm doing that maybe aren't actually the most productive. And I'd love to get your feedback on kind of the week planning process and see where I might be able to improve things.
Okay, so when do you do your weekly planning?
So typically for me, weekly planning takes place on a Sunday morning, and I am looking at basically starting the following Monday, that next day, all the way through the following Sunday. So I'm on the last day, kind of planning for the week ahead and not including the day that I'm on. Okay.
So this is before Monday. You're sitting down. You're looking at what you have to do for the week. Yep. Is that just focused on the tasks you have, or does it go deeper than that?
So it goes a little deeper than that. So I literally, what I do is I pull up an Evernote document and I start a bulleted list, and I put 3 sections on there. The first section is what's scheduled. The second section is what's important, and the third section is what happened. And I go through in the first section, and I literally put as sub-bullets, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I just physically look across my calendars, and I make a note of the commitments that I have that are legitimate appointments where I've made a commitment to somebody else for what I'm going to do, kind of as that reminder of the things that are actually scheduled. The next thing I do is I go to that second section and I write down for a grouping of categories of kind of how I spend my time. I put down a list of what's important in each of those categories. So I have one for family, I have one for personal development, I have one for health, and so forth. And I remind myself by writing it out what's important in each of those categories for me that week. And then based on that, I go back up to my calendar portion and I can start to fill in, okay, I know what I have committed already. Where are the pockets of time where I can make sure I'm planning time for those other important tasks that don't necessarily live on my calendar.
Okay.
And then the last piece of what I do is I go into the file that I had, or the note that I had for the previous week, and I fill in kind of the high points of important things that happened that weren't in the plan. I also double check, is there's stuff that I intended to do that I missed that I need to carry forward and that kind of thing. But it's the closure, or the expected closure of the week, because there's still the rest of the day left on Sunday of what I go through. And that kind of repeats itself each week. So that's the process I've been using. It takes me, if I'm honest about it, it takes me a good 45 minutes, maybe an hour, depending on how much stuff I'm slotting in there, which I feel like it's felt like a pretty reasonable amount of time, but it is an hour. Only 168 of those in a week. So, I'm just curious. I mean, what do you do for week planning? What's different? What might, what do you do?
It sounds like you've in some ways got a more formalized system than I do. And I do a lot of the same things you do, which is look at the last week and see what went well, or especially if I come off a week that is just I feel like I want to pull my hair out, look at what made it like that, and how could I more effectively use the time I had. But then I'll look ahead, and part of it is just very simple for me. I want to make sure that I don't have commitments that are overlapping each other, and I don't want to come up 5 minutes before a meeting and say, hey, Bob, I can't be on this meeting because I got another meeting I can be on. I want to, make the call of which ones I can and can't be on, and making sure I've got enough breathing room built in there. So blocking off time, because I'm in a role where if I have free time on my calendar, somebody's probably going to take it or ask to meet about something.
Absolutely.
So I've gone, but then I try and just think about each of the roles I have. So that's, in my case, each project I'm on, as well as how the podcasts are going, what blog posts I'm writing. These days, with new releases of Dynamics coming right around the corner, how am I going to find time to learn about all this great new stuff?
No kidding, right?
And so, that's where it comes in, and to me, it becomes more of it's not me at the mercy of my schedule. It's me taking control of my schedule and realizing that me taking 20 minutes to learn about this thing is equally or more important than this urgent meeting that we have this week. And it might even be more important than the big picture. Mm-hmm. And so it's just making sure that those systems in my life, and then making sure personal commitments I have, or, kids, my son has a basketball practice, so I need to make sure I get home by 5:30 so that I can take him there on time. That type of thing. Just making sure those systems work together. And that's in the last year and a half, that has changed for me. When you get in a new role, you kind of feel overwhelmed and you're going with the flow, and then you realize, I've got to figure this thing out. So then, what I think I was missing in the past was I was looking a lot at the tasks I had, but not looking at asking myself, how can I do what I'm doing better? How can I make this work together better? And I posted a link, and this isn't enough for a full topic, but there's an article that I really liked from the Wall Street Journal. Let me find that link. It was You're Not As Busy As You Think You Are, which is an interesting title, because I've had the same thought that, people say, I'm busy, I don't have time. I don't know how you have time to do podcasts and do blog posts. I'd never have time for that. And, the point is saying I don't have time is saying I'm at the mercy of my calendar. She says, Laura Vanderkam says, I'm not making that a priority, or I say I'm not choosing to do that, because it's all a matter of choosing what you do. And that's really what it is to me, is looking at my schedule coming up, making sure that I'm building in, because if I don't build in the things I prioritize and think are personally important, they're not going to happen. They're going to be at the mercy of the urgent things that come up and the fires to put out. Mm-hmm. And there was another book I read, and this was not a well-written book. I don't recommend this as a masterpiece or anything, but I read the book The System Mindset by Sam Carpenter, and it's one you can go to systemmindset.com and download a free ebook. So it's worth every penny you pay for it. But it's one of these books. Yeah, I mean, if you read some books, business books, the people spend half the book talking about how revolutionary their system is and how great they are. It's kind of like that, but the core nugget, which you can take away without really even reading the book, is the system. A system's mindset to life is looking at your life as a series of disconnected systems, kind of like your car. You've got the engine, and you've got the seats, and you've got the air conditioner, and you've got the radio. All these are independent systems, but they need to work together for your car to work right. And it's your life is kind of like that. So if you take your job and the roles you have at work and the priorities, what's important to you, and your relationships with your friends and family, looking at all them, you have to keep all those systems going and have them work together and work together well. That's kind of the mindset that I try and have.
Yeah, and as I hear you describing that, I haven't read it, but I like the idea of being able to extend that metaphor of just because you're in the car doesn't mean you have to have all the things going at the same time. You won't always need the air conditioner on all the way. You don't always need the radio going and the Bluetooth on and the TV on in the back seat and all of those things going at the same time. So I just metaphorically, I really appreciate that.
But I like your idea of having kind of a more form of a structure. I may go to that. It really sounds like you're giving yourself your own performance review.
Yeah, it's not as formal as I may have made it sound, but I mean the key things for me in what I'm doing there is by literally reminding myself these are the things that are important, and I'm having to write out for each of those categories what is actually important. Spending time with my daughter, reading her books, and I will set even targets of how many books I want to read her that week, which she at this time, sometimes it's how many times am I going to read the same book, not how many different books am I going to read, because she's glommed onto a few favorites. But, those kind of things where I will use that as a reminder to myself. But what as you were going through yours, something I'm curious on, as you think through, okay, the projects that I have, going on right now, are you just kind of mentally going through that? Are you referencing some other place where you've got a master list of the projects you're working on, or where does that live?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've found I don't just keep it in my mind. I actually use Wunderlist. I've got a list for each one of my projects, as well as a list for each one of the people in my team. And for each one of those, I want to keep them all front and center. And what the tendency is to get caught up in the fire of the moment, or the big problem, or the big project, which sometimes is the big problem, and ignore the little guy that is going okay, and then that becomes a problem. So to stay out of that, I'm trying to, on a regular basis, review each one kind of on my own, and we do this as a team too, but just myself, and say, okay, what is the one or two things that I need to be thinking about right now? What are the one or two things I need to be thinking ahead about? What's we're a month ahead from go live. Are we talking about what we're doing in phase 2? Mm-hmm. Or is there going to be a phase 2? Or how do we account for what happens after we go live and make sure you have coverage, and support? And, it's the same thing for each of my team members that I have to support, thinking through, where are they in their growth? What are their immediate issues that we need to work on so I don't lose track of those? But then also be thinking, what is the next action in each of these areas that I can be doing to add value? And I find, even at a simple level like that, I've even thought of making my own Power App. And I want to make my own Power App that kind of my own personal, because, again, if I had 3 questions like that each week I could answer, where are we? What are the immediate things we need to do next? And what's after that? Something like that. It would be great.
Well, if you end up getting going on that Power App and you want to bounce ideas off of somebody, I'm definitely here with an open mind.
All right. So what do you got for That's Not Productive today?
Well, this time for That's Not Productive, what I'd like to go through is something that has been... So I listen to a lot of podcasts. I'm not just a podcast, artist or talent, if I dare say it that way. But I also consume a lot of podcasts, which in and of itself isn't unproductive, until I realized over this weekend that in my downloaded queue of podcasts, so not just the feed, but the downloads I have backlogged that I actually want to listen to, I had over 100 episodes of different podcasts downloaded, waiting for me to consume them.
Wow.
Yeah.
You better get started on that.
At an average of, 45 minutes a crack, that's a heck of a lot of content that I'd unwittingly signed myself up for. So, I immediately went through, kind of culled the list, but shoot, I still had, 82 episodes, I think was the number I had it at. And this is, I don't know, maybe it's just because it's summertime and I'm not listening to podcasts as much because I'm trying to be outside, but it was definitely an aha moment for me.
Absolutely, yeah. I've been there too. I had... I go into the podcast directory and I find the recommended ones, or I hear a friend recommend one. I at one time had like 50 episodes of This American Life downloaded that I thought I wanted to listen to at one time. Mm-hmm. That's actually the reason I got rid of my DVR, because I wound up with a bunch of TV shows recorded. And I just felt like I need to watch them. And it's like, no, I don't. And these days you can always get it again if you have the itch to listen to that. You can find it again and you can, or watch it again for most things. But it's kind of the, I try and keep that lean, and I have several. I'm down to probably 3 that I download regularly, other than mine to test out how they sound when I download them. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's a good tip, and
hey, at least you're not blowing up your own stats.
Right, yeah, exactly. Hey, that's an idea. All right, well, thanks. So, what is your suggestion then? Are you culling the list on a regular basis?
So at this point, I'm not culling the list of subscriptions that I have. I am just trying to really ask the question of do I really want to listen to this one that I've downloaded? In the moment, it sounded like a great idea, but I tell you what, I've got probably 10 of them related to kind of different entrepreneurship topics. So starting a company and that kind of thing, which is I have a background there. It's my degree from college, and I've always been kind of a startup mentality type of person. But is the juice worth the squeeze on listening to 8-10 hours worth of content on that sometime in the next month? Well, probably not. Not the right way to do that. Even at 150% speed.
Here's what happens to me when I have a plane ride, especially a long plane ride. I feel the urge that I have to load up so I can't possibly be bored during my flight, and I overcompensate and I download way more than I can consume. And on my recent trip I took to Seattle, I found myself loading up my devices with TV shows and DVDs I'd ripped and whatever. I didn't watch a fourth of it.
Well, now that you can get the downloaded content for both Amazon Video and Netflix, locally on the device, I mean that is a new outlet that hasn't always been there for those plane rides, and just the more and more pull toward good content. And
Absolutely.
I think half the message there is, if you're producing content, as some of us here are, keep it short and sweet. Keep it interesting.
Keep it 15-minute episodes. And with that, I think our time's up.
All right. Sounds perfect. Hey, stay productive, Joel.
Thanks, Matt. Bye. This has been ProdCast, the personal productivity podcast from CRM Audio with Matthew C. Anderson and Joel Lindstrom. You can follow Matthew at his blog, connectingthedata.com, or on Twitter at MC Anderson. You can follow Joel Lindstrom on Twitter at Joel Lindstrom. You can subscribe to the CRM Audio network of podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, or any place else that offers fine podcasts. This podcast is a production of Dynamic Podcasts LLC.